Aha, so you stuck around. So it wasn't too much for you, the first video about the drama triangle. So if you've got this far, it's very likely that you're taking yourself seriously, you're taking life seriously, and you want to learn how what we need to do to get ourselves out of this. Now, this gives us an indicator of an alternative set of characters, and you'll notice the triangle is upside down. So now the creator, which was once the victim, so this is the victor, was once the victim. We have over here on the right, was once the rescuer. So rather than rescuing people, it's like continuously fishing for them, and they just grab the fish off of you and they just run away and say, thanks, I'll see you tomorrow when you can fish for some more for me. Gets draining, doesn't it? Because you start getting resentful because the hard work that you're putting in rescuing someone, they're not doing anything for themselves, are they? So eventually it does catch up. It catches up one way or another because you automatically render yourself. Remember in the first video, everybody, they all end up, all of these three characters, remember, they all end up here as a victim. We don't want that. You don't want that for yourself, do you? How do we stop that happening? Because if you recognize that pattern, regardless of where you are, I'm always right character, the persecutor, the blamer, the one that's like never wrong, he will eventually end up as a victim. The rescuer will always end up as a victim, just purely when it gets to the stage of, for example, after everything that I've done for you. That statement alone is rendering you are now a victim. And the victim may well come back with another response to that is, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't realize that I hurt you so much. Come here, let me put my arm around you and apologize. So the role swaps, and it happens like right there under the radar, right under our nose, and often we're not consciously aware that it's happening, and these roles are swapping out, and not everybody can be happy at the same time. It's like crazy, right? But anyway, so where was we? Let's flick through to this one. This is the more empowering one. This is the one we want to focus on. But you get the point, don't you? So we can't just stop doing something. We can't just stop an old behavior that doesn't serve us or anyone else. Can't just stop it. We have to replace it because it meets those fundamental needs. Now, you've heard me mention about the needs when I'm talking about the human needs, those fundamental needs that we have, that our physical body is stimulated by, the certainty, the uncertainty, the significance, and the need for love and connection, those ones. If you want to understand those, which is, if you found this interesting, this drama triangle stuff, if you find this interesting, you'll find that massively interesting. And I do have, conveniently, a set of 6 videos that explains the whole thing. If you really want to learn about why we do all of the things that we do, to understand yourself and other human beings on a real deep level, fascinating stuff, you may want to check that out. I'll stick maybe some links underneath this on wherever it is that you're watching this. I'll stick some links there. So we have the coach is the positive alternative of the rescuer. The challenger is the positive alternative of the finger pointer, the blamer. Okay, so let's look at the victor, the creator, the one that sits above everyone else now and observes and learns and grows and becomes the wise, smart one. So they develop their own self-worth. You'll notice that these all happen to have a commonality, is that, remember the other 3, the first 3 had low self-worth. These develop their own self-worth. when you operate more consciously on a higher level, then you will be filling up your own self-worth pot. We have better communication, developing better communication with yourself, not looking at outside, not looking out there on social media, not looking out there for someone to say that you're attractive, someone to say that you're smart, someone to say that you are successful. You don't need to do that. And if you are doing that, if you are somebody that is looking for validation and approval through social media, then you may well want to question that, because it's unsustainable, because you're not always going to get the clicks and the likes, unless you're a celebrity, of course. But hey, there's plenty of celebrities that are really down in the dumps, that are operating from the toxic drama triangle, because they have a hell of a lot of crap going on in their life sometimes. Not all the case, not all the times, just most of the time. So let's operate from a higher level, shall we? Much better, less draining. So they feel responsible and capable. Let's break that word down. Many of my other videos in the past, I've really gone down and done a whole hour, sometimes. Ridiculous, right? You can do a whole hour on the word responsible. Let's break that word down so you have a better understanding of it. Response, able to respond. Able to respond in a productive way. Response, able and capable. Feels responsible and capable. We're able to respond in a productive way to the stuff that's happening in life. Because there's stuff happening all the time in life. Tons of shit going on all of the time around us, isn't there? Stuff happening, being said to us, about us, in front of us, consuming and selling to us, and people challenging us and bitching about us and criticizing and judging and telling you that you're not enough unless you buy this stuff, and all this crazy stuff going on all the time. How are we responding to that? Are we responding to that in a productive way, or just in a consumer way? Is that as soon as you develop this idea that you're not enough and you're not attractive enough and you're not muscular enough and all this crazy stuff, because the world out there is telling you that, how do you respond? By buying stuff? How's that working out? So they feel responsible and capable. They can see opportunities in problems. Now, would you believe that any challenging issue that will crop up in your life, you are able to find an opportunity in that problem? In fact, it's impossible for there to not be an opportunity in that problem. So raising your consciousness, raising your level of developing your mindset, in other words, really. Developing your mindset allows us, that's one of the benefits, it's great, it's one of the side benefits of upgrading and updating your software. Developing your mindset is that it's fantastic. You can see an opportunity in every fucking problem. It's brilliant. So they focus on the solution rather than what the problem is. See the problem for what it is. Don't make out the problem ain't there, because yeah, there's an obstacle, there's a problem, there's a challenge right now, and it's sometimes fucking terrifying. Sometimes it can be really quite challenging, can't it? But what's the opportunity that we see in the problem? For some people, they see a problem as a means to sell to people, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's what I do. It's what I've been doing. That's what I do in my primary business. Is I see opportunities in people's problems. With my coaching, I see opportunities in people's problems. I help them, question them, maybe help to guide them into seeing opportunity in what their problems are. So there's lots of ways that we can do that. Is if we look at people's problems, we can go, let's develop a solution to that person's problems. And you can sometimes even make a business out of it, can't you? So they focus on solutions. They they accept responsibility in the traditional meaning, the traditional way that we represent that word of responsibility is that they take it on board. Yeah, I can accept responsibility. Ability for that is I could have done better, or maybe I was like misjudged myself and my thinking around that and made a slightly different decision that I could have done. So they also make decisions more from faith. Faith being past experiences and knowledge and wisdom that I have developed, and everything painful and everything pleasurable that I've experienced in life is that the decision that I'm going to make right now around this is going to come from me. And if it doesn't work out, it doesn't matter. I'll work around it. It'll work out one way or another. It'll work out, even if it doesn't work out to my expectations. So they do have that kind of that air about them of, yeah, I'm willing to try regardless that it may not work out first time, because there's always a second time and a third time. Because if you want it bad enough, keep trying and changing your approach until you find a way that works. Whereas victims, they try something usually once, it doesn't work out, they look around, see if anyone else has witnessed them failing, because they're terrified of failing, and the feelings and the emotions, because of like childhood wounds probably, is they don't like the feelings of failing and rejection. Whereas when we upgrade ourselves, we don't have the fear really of failing, because we know that failing doesn't really exist, and we will find we'll always find a gift in that so-called failure. So that is the victor, the creator, the observer, complete opposite to victim. What's the next one? The challenger. So the challenger is the positive version of the finger pointer, the blamer, the one that says you're wrong and you're no good and I'm right and I'm the best and you're shit and everything else. So they're able to set boundaries without having any expectations. So they don't have expectations over people, but they do set boundaries of what's acceptable to them, and they are very consistent with that. These are my boundaries, and I'm not going to flex on that. This is what's acceptable to me. So they ask good questions as well. A challenger, just in general conversation, they'll ask really good questions. The reason why they will do that is because to have someone feel maybe uncomfortable is not always, it's not necessarily being judgmental, because it's exactly what I do here as a coach, and maybe not even as a coach, because if someone asks me a question out there in the normal world by people that I associate with, if they ask me a question that's not a high level question, I'll answer from the perspective of a challenger, not somebody that's going to ridicule. I'm going to ask a question. I am going to respond with a good quality question that may sometimes makes that person feel uncomfortable, not because I want to be in a powered position or a higher position of significance. It will be because I know that healthy discomfort is an opportunity for someone to grow. But that's the only reason that I will do that now. I used to do it from the other way. I used to do it from the judgmental perspective, because it's easy and it's unobtainable, and it's very lazy and it's very unproductive. So the challenger sees, they see discomfort as growth. So when I feel challenged by somebody, it makes me feel uncomfortable. I automatically now go, oh, okay, I feel uncomfortable. Why am I feeling uncomfortable? That's challenged. Excuse me, that's challenged me. I feel challenged, and there's something good in there. I just need to sit with that for a moment and think it through, rather than just react and go stupid and crazy. I'll think about it now. Oh, somebody's asked me something, and it's made me feel a little bit uncomfortable. Okay, what does this really mean? So they can be 100% honest when asked their opinion. So if somebody asks my opinion and they genuinely are asking because they really want to know rather than just asking for the sake of it, I'll be honest. I will be honest as I possibly can, and that's what a challenger does. And challengers, they tend not to lie and really beat around the bush because that's good for people. It's good for people. That would be good for me. I would prefer someone being absolutely 100% honest with me if I was being an absolute dick. If I was being really fucking stupid around something, I want somebody to be honest with me. Like constructively. Tell me something constructively and be honest with me, because we really need that, don't we, at times? And I still need that regularly, on a regular basis, even today. None of us are perfect, and we're all working on this. This is not somewhere that you get to, by the way. This is something that you have to stay consistently working upon yourself, and hopefully making tomorrow being better tomorrow than you was today. So they challenge people using vulnerability. I challenge people here in my office or even online with vulnerability. What do I mean vulnerability? Like feared and being scaredy? I don't mean that. I mean being vulnerable and being open and expressive with my emotions and my thinking and my vocabulary and the words that I use, like love, talking about love in my office with a client. And if he's a guy and he's like a big bodybuilder with a bald head and tattoos all over him, I am going to express exactly what I think 100% honestly and vulnerably, because I know that everybody really inside is all made of the same stuff. So sometimes people need to know that it's okay, that you can be vulnerable and open and allow yourself to be open, because it's the greatest strength that we have is openness, love, empathy, compassion, understanding. That's our greatest strength when we are trying maybe to empower other people, because a challenger is about empowering other people, isn't it? Rather than putting people down, is lifting people up by being honest with them, so they can see people's strengths before their underdeveloped parts. So rather than the underdeveloped parts of somebody that usually jumps out at most people, doesn't it? That's the bit that you see first of all. That's usually what gets us to react and bark back and fight back and, you know, call them shitty names, like they've called you a shitty name and told you you're no good, and you just have a go back, and it's that game of tennis of like stupid, childish names being thrown back at one another. So that's the part I mean, is the undeveloped part, is developing your ability to see people's strengths beyond the bullshit. So see somebody for what they're really good at. What are they good at? What's their strengths of character beyond the stuff that we would normally judge someone on? So that's what a challenger is able to do. A coach, it's pretty much what it is that I do. I challenge people as well, by the way, and I have maybe an observer's position of maybe being a creator, using good quality questions when we're coaching somebody, when we're talking to somebody. And this can happen. You can use all of this, operating from these three characters here. Operating from these three characters is, you can use this, be this in your everyday life. You don't have to be a coach and do what it is that I'm doing, but if it is something that you would like to do, then I most certainly can help you with developing your skills to be able to influence people. Influence with integrity, by the way. So a coach sees somebody, you are okay, you are not broken, because people are not broken. Despite what we sometimes believe about other people and ourselves, is we're really not broken. So a coach will be a good example of what is possible, and if you want help, just ask. So we must wait for somebody to ask us. Don't just go and rescue them, because a rescuer will swoop in and go, you need my help and I can help you because I'm really nice and everything else. And it's just, sometimes it can be quite annoying when somebody swoops in and tries to rescue you by telling you that you are broken in a roundabout way. So they develop their own self-worth. Again, it's a repeated pattern, isn't it? Ask good questions that the other person isn't asking themselves. This is a really cool strategy if you really like helping other people and guiding people in a much more productive direction. Let's say that you do have some wisdom and knowledge and understanding about maybe how somebody could better their life genuinely, and you want to take that information, that know-how, and pass it on and apply it to somebody else's life. If you genuinely want to do that, then ask questions. Don't tell people, you should do this, you need to leave him, I told you he'd never change. Or she, I told you to leave her and she's never going to change, she's horrible. Just trying to balance things out, guys, you know. So a coach will ask questions that person is not asking themselves, because if we was to ask ourselves in those little conversations that we have inside, you know, the character inside of that self-dialogue, we tend to ask very unempowering questions to ourselves, don't we? And the human psyche, ultimately, our whole existence consciously of overcoming issues and problems and doing things is like thinking. So the whole process of thinking, ultimately, if you really simmer it down and simplify it, it's a process of asking and answering questions within our mind. That's ultimately, that's simplistically, that's how it is. That's what's happening. So our whole functioning is asking ourselves and answering questions in our minds. But we're so stuck with asking and answering questions that are very disempowering within our own self. Once we figure that one out, asking ourselves good empowering questions, sometimes quite scary questions, the positive questions that we really should ask ourselves inside our own minds, in fact, happen to be the most scariest ones and the ones that we want to avoid asking ourselves. So that's why quite often we'll get wrapped up in things like the drama triangle and dysfunctional relationships and failing businesses and repeated failed relationships, etc. It's because we are asking ourselves disempowering questions. So asking good questions of people that we really care about, that we would like to see succeed, ask them questions that they are not asking themselves, empowering questions. For example, when somebody, like a victim, they keep saying something along the lines of, why does it always happen to me, and why is my life so fill in the blank, shit, whatever. You could ask them a question rather than swooping in and putting your arm around them and saying, now, never mind, I'm here, let me fix you and I'll make you feel good for 10 minutes until you need me again next time. You could say, how would you like your life to be? You know, because you're really good at explaining how you don't want your life to be. How would you like it to be specifically? That's when you are now becoming a challenger rather than a persecutor. Make sense? Okay. So they will show another person how they can do things for themselves. So in other words, teach someone how to fish rather than keep fishing for them, because it's just a quick fix for you, remember. So it's much more empowering. It takes so much less energy operating from these characters. Can you see how that could work so far? How it's so much less energy being used and actually so much more empowering. It's so much more, what's the word? Satisfying. So they develop one's ability to listen without taking on other people's problems. Difficult one, isn't it, for a rescuer? Because of a rescuer, they will bog themselves down with a whole catalogue by the end of the day of all of these different people, and they absorbed all of their issues and their problems and trying to work out solutions for all of these people, and they are like got the weight of the world. They've got literally the weight of everyone else's problems on their shoulders, and they take it home for them. Those empathic people, empaths, maybe the codependents of the world, and the empaths, they're the ones that suffer with this like neck ache and shoulder ache, bent over quite often. This doesn't happen by accident. There's no coincidence there. Is that they shoulder and take on lots of other people's issues and problems. So we can develop our ability to listen to people, but maintain these boundaries of what's, you know, an acceptable limit, and maybe ask them challenging questions of maybe what they could do to better their life, and, you know. So they're able to set boundaries. Setting boundaries, self-explanatory. I think most people know what that is. What's acceptable? What's the line that I'm willing to accept with other people if they're still continuing to operate from those previous three characters? What's the limit? What's the boundary? What's the cut-off point of what we're willing to do for those people before we shut them off completely, or they choose to maybe to catch us up and maybe start operating from a higher level here where they don't drain you, is that they add value to you, because what you're suggesting them to do is that they are taking it on board and they are going to apply it. Makes us feel good now it's sustainable and it's repeatable. The energy is flowing forwards productively rather than getting stuck and toxic and goes round in that drama triangle. So they support and they don't rescue. They have a highly developed sense of self-responsibility. Highly developed sense of self-responsibility. They develop, I've had to, over time, through trial and error, lots of failing, if you want to use that word, is developing our sense of self-responsibility. Takes a while for that really to sink in, is that so I'm actually responsible for my level, my quality of my life up until this moment, with absolutely everything is actually my doing. I am responsible for my level, my quality of life right now up until this point. Excuse me. So again, they focus on solutions more than the problem. They look at the solutions rather than dwelling on the problem, because if we dwell on a problem about what someone said or what someone's done and the drama of that and the excitement and of that and the stimulus of all of that, is that it can get very draining. So how do we snap out of that? Is that we focus on a solution. We maybe suggest solutions. Maybe the creator in us will come up with some ideas of maybe a way out of this, and maybe what could be rather than what's not. And a challenger part of us could say, right, okay, well, what about if you was to maybe do this, or how would you like your life to be rather than how you don't want it to be? Because you keep telling me over and over again how you don't want it to be. Not once yet have you said, I want my life to be like that. Because if that's the case, you start asking good quality questions, then all of a sudden your life starts taking a turn for the better, oddly enough, purely just by questioning. Good quality questions. Focuses on solutions more. The problem looks within for the answers. So they look within. I look within my clients when I'm talking to them and they are posing problems and challenges, is that I'm looking inside of them for the answers. I know within myself that there are answers for their problem, because there's always an upside to every supposed downside. If we see a problem, I know that it's impossible for there to not be a golden nugget in every problem. There's always an opportunity with any problem. I already know that. I've already bought into that concept, and I already know that that's factual. It's just one of those laws of the universe called cause and effect, if you like. So look within for answers. So rather than be a rescuer, look within them. They have the resources, internal resources that we all possess is resourcefulness. So I hope that helps. A little bit longer than the first one. Sorry about that, guys. I wanted to go into a little bit more depth on this one to try and trigger the challenger within you, the victor within you, the coach within you. And of course, how do we apply all of this? Is sometimes we need help. I'm there to help if you are somebody that wants to take your life from this. If you want to go from this, look at the list that you created whilst watching this video. If you want to apply it, now you know how to apply it. If you want help and support applying it, I'm always there to help. Thanks for tuning in, guys, and I will catch you on another video very soon.